Trust. It's an essential thread in the tapestry of human relationships, shaping the ways we affect one another and the extent to which we share our lives. But what is trust? How does it come to be? And how do we know when someone is trustworthy? Leadership author Charles Feldman defines trust as making something important to you vulnerable to the actions of another. It's a definition that leads us to the essential question asked by trust. How safe am I with you? For when we allow ourselves to grow close to someone, the thing we risk sharing is our own heart. This is why it's so important to be able to discern the trustworthiness of others, and to ensure that we ourselves are trustworthy. Researcher and author Brené Brown offers a tool for doing just that. In her Anatomy of Trust model, she uses the acronym BRAVING to explain 7 key elements that make up trustworthiness in relationships. Boundaries, reliability, accountability, the vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. To better understand these characteristics, we turn to a metaphor in which trust is a matter of life and death. The Eiger. This majestic mountain in the Swiss Alps is both beautiful and treacherous. Its north face has become infamously known as the Death Wall. It's one of the world's most well-known and dangerous climbing destinations. Since it was first attempted in 1936, more than 60 souls have been lost here. For those who take it on, it embodies the very essence of trust. The things that help climbing teams succeed here make trust understandable in the most practical of ways. Brené Brown's braving model begins with B for boundaries, the foundational starting point for trust. Like the membrane of a living cell, boundaries serve as a protective barrier, safeguarding the integrity of one's internal world and preventing careless intrusions into the world of those around them. These are the relational lines that protect our well-being and the well-being of others, defining what's acceptable to someone and what is not. In the world of climbing, the boundaries that sustain trust begin long before the first step is taken. Agreements on route, climbing positions, pacing goals, equipment selections, and more are clarified during planning. Each climber's boundaries determine these decisions. Boundaries that are undefined, uncommunicated, or ignored can lead to exhaustion, injury, or worse. The Eiger's north face was first attempted in 1936 by 4 climbers: Andreas Hinterstoisser, Tony Kurtz, Willy Angerer, and Eduard Rayner. While all experienced climbers, they compromised on one notable boundary: the amount of rope to bring, choosing instead to travel as light as possible. It would prove to be the first of several poor decisions that would lead to tragedy. In personal relationships, boundaries manifest in various ways. Saying no to certain requests, communicating our needs or preferences, respecting differences and the personal space of others. While boundaries do involve limits, they're not really about preventing connection. They actually establish a framework that enables healthy interactions. R is for reliability, consistency over time. When climbing as a group on a steep mountain face, reliability means trusting one's partners will be consistent in how they operate during the climb. When suspended hundreds of feet above ground, behavior that's not entirely reliable, even in seemingly small ways, can have dire consequences. On the first day of the 1936 climb, the group encountered a steep ice field. Andreas Hinterstoisser completed a dangerous solo climb, laying safety line for the rest of the group to use. While such safety lines would normally have been left in place for their return, the group removed this one to conserve rope once across. A break in what would normally be a reliable safety decision. In our daily interactions, reliability can take many forms. Showing up on time, keeping promises, following through on commitments. Just as each small act of reliability builds trust, so each failure to follow through erodes secure connection. A is for accountability. Accountability is the willingness to own our mistakes, apologize for them, and make amends when we have hurt someone or let them down. It's about taking responsibility for our actions, even when it's uncomfortable. Mistakes are inevitable, even for experienced climbers. A misread route, a step that sends loose gravel on those below. What matters most is how one responds when mistakes are made. A climber who makes excuses, blames, or refuses to acknowledge their error damages trust within the partnership. Conversely, a climber who owns their mistakes without hesitating, apologizes sincerely, and takes steps to rectify the situation strengthens the bond of trust. When we demonstrate accountability, we show that we value the relationship more than our ego, and that we can be trusted to grow from our mistakes. V is for the vault. The vault is that aspect of trust that refers to our ability to keep confidences and protect what may be private. It's about knowing what information is ours to share and what belongs to others. When we trust someone with personal or confidential information, we expect them to safeguard it. Respecting the vault is a choice to be careful instead of careless. I is for integrity. Integrity is the measure of commitment one has to their values, especially when sticking with those values is costly. Integrity is demonstrated when we choose courage over comfort, what's right over what's easy. It involves a clarity of conviction and a willingness to follow through. As C.S. Lewis wrote, integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. On the second day of the 1936 Eiger attempt, Willie Angerer was struck in the head by a falling stone, leaving him injured. It would normally have resulted in a team's decision to descend and seek medical attention, but the 1936 group was more than halfway to the summit and Willie insisted he could continue. Rather than protesting for his sake, the rest of the group agreed. N is for non-judgment. Non-judgment is about being honest with our weaknesses and asking for what we need without the fear of being viewed as less. Trust flourishes when we find the courage to be vulnerable, to reveal our imperfections and our need for support, where vulnerability is welcomed and met with empathy and understanding. When a climber confronts uncertainty in a maneuver or in their own ability, they, like us all, deal with the conflict of whether or not to bring another into their experience. We don't know exactly what Willie Angerer said to the group, but the circumstances suggest he may have downplayed the nature of his injuries, perhaps not wanting to fail his goal or his group. After all, the men he was climbing with were all well-known, ambitious mountaineers. Who would want to be the weak link in such a group? In our relationships, practicing non-judgment means listening with humility, compassion, and empathy. It means trying to understand and support without imposing solutions for our own comfort's sake. It also means being vulnerable ourselves in our own times of need. When someone is eager to help others but fails to ask for help themselves, it reveals a negative attitude toward weakness and need. True non-judgment applies to all, empowering us to give the same compassion to others that we give ourselves. G is for generosity. In the context of trust, generosity refers to giving others the benefit of the doubt. It's lived out when a person makes kind and reasonable assumptions about someone else's intentions as they work to understand what happened, especially when mistakes or hurts have occurred. On challenging climbs, fatigue and stress can lead to miscommunications or perceived slights. A partner may seem short-tempered or make a decision you don't fully understand. A generous climber will initially assume positive intent. Perhaps they are tired, worried about something, or have a good reason for their actions that isn't immediately apparent. They will approach the situation with curiosity rather than suspicion or judgment. In relationships, practicing generosity involves trying to understand others' perspectives, giving them the benefit of the doubt when mistakes happen, and avoiding negative assumptions. When we approach others with generosity, we create a more gracious and understanding environment, encouraging more resilient connection. While the 1936 alpine climbers may not have struggled with generosity, their previous trustworthiness errors had already set them up for an unfortunate outcome. On day 3, Willie's injuries had progressed to the point that he was struggling to maintain consciousness. The group finally turned around. When they reached the ice field encountered on day 1, they discovered it had become untraversable due to the previous night's storm. The only way across would be with a safety line. But since they had removed theirs earlier, they were forced to take an alternate, unplanned route, during which the group was struck by another avalanche. Tragically, 3 of the 4 climbers perished in the fall. Tony Kurtz, the last remaining survivor, was left suspended in the freezing air until the next morning. When rescuers attempted to reach him the following day, neither he nor they had enough rope. They recovered his body 3 days later. Most of us will not confront such extreme circumstances in which trustworthiness is a matter of life and death. Nevertheless, trust remains an essential part of the human experience. We need to be able to trust those we share life with. Their attentive consideration of healthy boundaries, their reliability in partnership, their willingness to be accountable, their thoughtful discretion, their commitment to integrity, their empathetic non-judgment, and their grace of generosity. Brené Brown's braving model offers a powerful roadmap for understanding and cultivating trust in our relationships. As we consider and grow our relationships, these core elements of trustworthiness help us know what to look for in others, where we need to grow, and perhaps most important of all, how trustworthy we are in the way we care for our own hearts